That's the map of the world. And some of you were already here while I took you through Piyush's archival curatorial intervention. So this is the 50s and the 60s were a period of significant cross-pollination between literary and visual arts in Baroda. I mixed the two up, Baroda and Baroda. Okay, Ajay will reflect on this period of intense interaction and how this translates into the ongoing moment. He will read from his work of fiction constructed around Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh's Mapa Mundi, a series that celebrates transcultural histories and contemporary events. Sheikh and Jorge Luis Borges will appear as characters in this work in progress. So Ajay is just to kind of the lay of the land. Ajay will speak now for 45 minutes, and there will be a 15-minute Q&A thereafter. And again, please switch off your phones. Thanks, Ajay.
Thank you. Am I audible? Thank you. At the outset, let me start thanking Gitanjali for inviting me in this exhibition. And I would also like to thank Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh for helping us with some of the slides. And I would also like to thank Richard Dharam. I'll be using some of his insights during this talk. Whether we should call it a talk or a reading of fiction or what, we kept wondering, like, whenever we were interacting, we had this problem of coming up with some form. Let's say this is like a collage. I'll be starting from the installation of Piyush's installation on the 50s and 60s of Gujarat, especially the literary movement. And from there, like I go back and forth to how my journey started in this field. And then let's see, I want to read a few pages from the fiction, which I have constructed around the Mapa Mundi series. And let's see, I'll read some pages in Gujarati and then some pages in English translation. Okay. Okay. So I hope this whole collage makes sense. The 50s and 60s. See, the relation between, we want to look at the relation between literary arts and say visual arts. And it started in say somewhere around 1916 with the magazine Vishmi Sadi. Vishmi Sadi used to publish covers of different artists, and especially Ravi Shankar Rawal. Later on, Ravi Shankar Rawal himself came up with a magazine, Kumar, and that's probably pretty famous in Gujarat. And there again, he used to stress a lot on visual arts. Vincent Dharamsi narrated one incident when he happened to meet Satyajit Ray in 60s, 70s. He happened to show one issue of Kumar to Satyajit Ray, and Satyajit Ray liked it so much that he said, "I want to keep this copy with me." So that's the standard of Kumar, that Ray wanted to keep a copy. Then, like we had Vishwamanav, Sanskruti by Uma Shankar Joshi. Lots of journals during this period. Suresh Joshi himself started Manisha first. But with Kshitij, everything changed. That's where Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh comes in. Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh had come here to do his master's in fine arts. And he happened to he used to write stories and poems and all sorts in Saurashtra, Surendranagar. And then when he met Suresh Joshi was thinking of coming up with a journal. He was already doing Kshitij. So at that time he offered him, okay, why don't you do the covers? And that's when this whole what we call modern art came on the cover pages of literary magazines. And Kshitij made an immense contribution, not only in the field of literature, but in the field of visual arts for the Gujarati milieu. And as Gitanjali was narrating, not only Sheikh, but Jyoti Bhatt, Vivan Sundaram, I think even K.G. Subramaniam, all those people were involved. They all helped. And what Vichendra told you, that imagine this was a monthly. And in those days, to come up with a cover page of an artist, okay, with 2 colors or 4 colors, whatever in those days, every month for 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 years, okay, was probably unthinkable. And according to him, I think that according to him, it was the only magazine that published artworks in this fashion all over India, not only in Gujarat. And he's a fine historian, so I would go by this opinion. Later on, Suresh Joshi started Uhapo, Etad, Setu, Sahajya. Etad still runs. Etad is every 3 months. Etad still appears. So it has a very, very long kind of trajectory. Setu was again a special issue, special kind of a journal, which it was a journal of translation, where they used to translate from English into Gujarati and Gujarati into English and all sorts of things. And Suresh Joshi, along with Ganesh Devi and even Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh, they were working on this. Later on, Sahajya also came. But there is one special thing needs to be mentioned. Kshitij came up with a special issue of Drashakala, visual arts. This is in 1963. And that's where, like, journal had Jairam Patel's paintings and then Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh's paintings on those. Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh's poetry on those paintings. That kind of thing. And then Jyoti Bhatt's articles. And then there were translations of different artists and critics. During the same period, Sheikh came up with his poetry collection, Atwa. And some of you must have seen it. It's a remarkable collection. Again, it has poetry as well as his own work. And it's like, what do you say, collector's copy. Like, it's something which we don't see even these days. Okay? So that's something which is remarkable. Okay, see, there is this whole, say, little magazine movement going on. And there were around 18 to 19 little magazines which came out during that period. But at the same time, like, you would relate that there was a film society movement going on all over India. Theatre movement, IPTA and all were going on. Progressive movement in art as well. So all these things were happening. Okay? It's all bubbling up. Okay? New energy coming up. kind of fascinating, new things happening all the time, all the while. And imagine with minimum amount of fund, okay, and generally from their own pockets. Okay? So this little magazines. And now this whole thing then continues, say in Gadya Parva. Again, a magazine published by Ratnay. The movie that you saw on the screen here on Suresh Joshi, that movie was made by Bharat Nayak. So that he came up with this, and he is a he was a student of Suresh Joshi, and then he started this publication, Gadya Parva, and again, such a fascinating magazine that it again brought a new change in literary field. But let's talk about the visual art contribution. So the Gadya Parva had two major names, okay, as their art concepts, Bhupen Thakkar and Atul Dodia. So they used to have remarkable cover pages, sometimes even back covers. Barve, Sudhir Patwardhan, Riyaz Komu, Atul himself, Sheikh, okay, you name it, and they were all there. So that's how like we kept in touch with these kinds of work. Then Gadya Parva came up with a very fascinating special issue on again visual art, and here like they published artists, whatever, like whether they have written stories or diary or any critical piece. So they were all there in Gujarat, in Gadya Parva. And I still remember, along with say Padamsi, say Barve's work, Patwardhan, their writings. There was Ram Kumar's short story, and that's still the touching story is still there in my mind. That was the impact of this whole journey. Now see how do I come in this whole thing? Okay. My first story got published in Gadya Parva at the age of 17, and then second story got published at the age of 18. And at 19, I got invited to writers' workshop. So again, Bharat Nayak used to, and Gita Nayak, his wife, both of them used to organize this writers' workshop, where writers used to contribute themselves. Okay? And then they used to go at some place, report it, write and read and criticize each other. And that's where, like, at the age of 19, I saw Bhupen Thakkar, Ghulam Sheikh, Atul Dodia, Kamal Vora, Kanji Patel, Bharat Nayak, Kirit Dudar, Vipin Patel, remarkable talents. So that's how I got in touch with these people. Then I used to write articles on art sometimes. I wrote a couple of articles on Atul Dodia's work, then on Ashwin Mehta's photographs, then some pieces on Vermeer and Hopper. And at the same time, I was trying to write stories where, like, see, whenever we used to meet, say I used to meet any of my friends or anybody, we always used to talk about art and artists, writers, poets. So I was wondering, like, is it possible to construct story around these kinds of thoughts? When we just talk about writers and poets and artists, filmmakers, is it possible to construct stories around it? And that's how I started writing stories again. So what I wrote at this 17, 18, then there was a big gap, almost 10, 12 years I did not write. And then I started developing these kind of experimental fiction. And that's where like I used to bring in Nirmal Verma, Milan Kundera. So in story, Borges, Tarkovsky. So it is somewhere around that time I wanted to write a piece on shape also. I had seen a picture of Mapamundi in a book that I had purchased. It was a profitable kind of book on philosophy. And there was a very small picture of this Mapamundi, text of Mapamundi, map of the world. And then, like when I happened to meet Sheikh, and I found that he is working on something like this. So he showed me the postcard because original Mapamundi is not available. So he only had postcard with him. So he showed me, and then I said, "Oh, I've seen this." So he said, "Okay, you will have to show me that picture because if it is better quality, then we can use that picture." Unfortunately, mine was not. Okay. So I got removed from the history. Otherwise, like that would have been my name. Oh, the picture is courtesy as it's not there. Anyway, and when I was working on these Mapamundi series, that's when like somewhere like I don't know. I felt like that I can turn this whole thing into a fiction. Why don't I write a fiction rather than just writing a particular piece? So then this whole thing started, and I hope if I read it, you may find it interesting. Before I start, okay, let me see. Like, see, this period of 60s and 70s. Sometimes we use the metaphor of rupture. Sometimes we use the metaphor of okay, this whole Navonmesh. So it's like a Vasant. Okay, so new flowers are coming up. So new talents, new works, new energy emerging all the time. Now, if you see the period, it's more settled, okay, more conformist, okay, things which others do, that kind of thing. In those days, experiments, all sorts of things. And so I was wondering what kind of metaphor can you use to conceptualize it? I would rather use the period before say 60s was very Chekhovian, in the sense that writers or artists were trying to portray reality as it is. Okay, so they were like reporting reality. And this 60s onwards, like with Shitich onwards, the whole thing changed in Gujarat. And I would call it a period of Borgesian turn. Okay? So where art becomes self-reflexive. Okay? You turn inside. Art turns towards itself. And, so what you create is also real. Okay? So it's not that you want to represent reality, but what you construct is also real. So that turn is significant. Okay? So, but again, there was again, as I said, 88 when Gargapuro came, there was again another turn, and that was again a very Chekhovian turn, very ironic thing to happen. So again, the whole Borgesian movement went into margin, and Chekhov comes to the foreground. So that this kind of background or background and foreground, okay, so they keep changing. Okay, so front and back, so that kind of movement keeps happening. Okay, so I hope I'm making sense. Now, later on, if you have questions, I'll take these things up there. I would like to now start reading, and I'll be reading as see. There are around 15 pages. First 15 pages that I was hoping to read, but due to the time constraint, I'll be reading only approximately 2 to 3 pages. So just 2 to 3 pages in Gujarati and then simultaneously I'll be reading them in English. I hope it gives you some sense of what I'm trying to do in this work. And this picture that you see here, that is the original text of Mahamoody. In 2003, he did not have access to this kind of thing. This is fascinating piece. This is the original. Then we will see as we proceed probably to the other works. Okay, so I'll start now. And again, like say, this is going to be collage because I won't be able to read in a serial way. So I'll pick up some pieces and give you some kind of. Okay. Now this work is called Jagat Naksha, map of the world. Okay. So I'll start. આ બધાની શરૂઆત નકશાના એક ટુકડાથી થઈ અથવા ભૂરી નોટબુકથી કે જેમાંથી એ ટુકડો મળેલો. પહેલા મને એ ટુકડો નકામો લાગેલો, તેથી એને કચરાપેટીમાં ફેંકી દીધો. પછી નકશાની છબી ચિત્તમાં ઉછળતી રહી, સાથે અસ્વસ્થ કરનારો વિચાર કે એ ટુકડો કદાચ બોર્ગેસે જણાવેલા સામ્રાજ્યના નકશાનો ભાગ હતો. થોડીવાર હું એ વિચાર પર હસતો રહ્યો. મારું હસવાનું શમી ગયું, પણ પેલો વિચાર નહીં. દિવાલ પરના ખીલાની જેમ કે ખોડાઈ ગયેલો ને એના પર નકશાની છબી લટકતી. અજાણતા હું કચરાપેટી તરફ વળ્યો ને એ ટુકડો શોધવા માંડ્યો. જ્યારે એ મળી ગયો, મારા મોઢા પર સ્મિત ઝબક્યું. એ વખતે મને ખ્યાલ આવ્યો કે હું ધાર્યા કરતા વધારે અસ્વસ્થ હતો. દરેક વાર્તાની ઘણી શરૂઆતો હોય છે ને ઘણા અંત. માટે દરેક વાર્તા ભીતર બીજી ઘણી વાર્તાઓ હોય છે. વાર્તા રેખા જેવી નથી હોતી, એ વર્તુળ જેવી. વાર્તા પરપોટા જેવી હોય છે, જોડાયેલી ક્ષણો. મેં વાર્તાની શરૂઆત કરી દીધી છે, પણ હું બીજી શરૂઆતો તરફ વળતો રહીશ. એ રીતે વાર્તાને ફરી શરૂ કરતો રહીશ. તમને કદાચ ખ્યાલ આવશે કે વાર્તાની કોઈ શરૂઆત નથી હોતી, કે નથી હોતો એનો કોઈ કારણ. Now I'll read the same passage in English. It all started with a piece of the map, or rather with the blue notebook where I found it. At first, I considered it insignificant, so I threw it in the dustbin. Later, the image of the map kept surging in my mind. What perturbed me further was the thought that it could be one of the fragments of the map of the empire which Borges mentions. For a while, I chuckled at this thought. The chuckle subsided, but not the thought. It was drilled in like a nail on the wall on which the image of the map seemed to hang. Instinctively, I turned to the dustbin and started looking for the fragment. When I found it, a smile flashed on my face. At that moment, I realized how terribly anxious I had been. Every story has many beginnings and as many ends. Therefore, a lot of other stories are enveloped within a single story. Stories are neither like lines nor like circles. They are like bubbles, connected and ephemeral. I have already begun the story, but I shall keep turning to other beginnings. And in this way, I shall keep beginning the story again and again. You might realize that there is neither a beginning nor an end to a story. પહેલી વાર SMS હતો. હું તમને ઘણા વખતથી ફોન કરવાનો પ્રયત્ન કરી રહી છું. દુર્ભાગ્યે ફોન લાગી નથી રહ્યો. હું તમને મળવા માંગુ છું. આ શનિવારે શક્ય છે? આશા. મેં મારા મોબાઈલની સ્ક્રીન પર તપાસ્યું. ગુરુવાર હતો. પછી મેં વિચારી જોયું, શું હું આશા નામની કોઈ સ્ત્રીને ઓળખું છું? ખૂબ પ્રયત્નો કર્યા પછી પણ આ નામનું કોઈ સ્ત્રી પાત્ર સ્મૃતિ પર પૂછશું નહીં. મોબાઈલમાં કોન્ટેક્ટની યાદીમાં આવું કોઈ નામ નહોતું. એન્ટી એલર્જી ગોળીઓ ખાવાની શરૂ કર્યા પછી મારાથી નામો ભૂલાઈ જતા. એટલે સરનામાની ડાયરી તપાસી જોઈ. એમાં પણ આ નામ નહોતું. રાતના 8:30 વાગેલા. મેં એને ફોન જોડ્યો. હાય અજય. હાય, હું તમને પૂછવાનો હતો કે તમારે કોનું કામ છે? હવે તમે પૂછી શકો છો કે મારે શું કામ છે. 2-3 દિવસથી મારો હેન્ડસેટ બગડેલો હતો, એટલે તમને તકલીફ થઈ હશે. ફોન કરવા બદલ આભાર. બોલો હું શું કરી શકું તમારું? માફ કરજો, હું ફોન પર નહીં જણાવી શકું. મારે તમને મળીને વાત કરવી પડશે. તમે ક્યાંથી બોલો છો? અમદાવાદથી? તમે તારીખ અને સમય આપો તો હું વડોદરા પહોંચી જઈશ. આપણે ઓળખીએ છીએ એકબીજાને? હું તમને ઓળખું છું. ઇન્ટરનેટ પર મળતા તમારા લેખો મેં વાંચ્યા છે. મેં તમારા વિશે બને એટલી માહિતી ભેગી કરી છે. તમે કામ જણાવો તો મારા માટે નિર્ણય લેવાનું સરળ બનશે. મારે જે કામ છે તે તમારા સિવાય કોઈ કરી શકે એમ નથી, પણ ફોન પર હું જણાવી શકું તેમ નથી. આ શનિવારે મળી શકે. So this conversation goes on, but I'll cut it. In fact, it all started with an SMS. I have been trying to call you up for a long time now. Unfortunately, the number isn't getting through. I wish to meet you. Would it be possible this Saturday? Asha. I checked my mobile screen. It was Thursday. Then I tried recalling. Did I know any lady with the name Asha? In spite of repeated efforts, I could think of no lady bearing this name. There was no such name in the list of contacts in my mobile either. I had developed a problem of forgetting names as a side effect of having anti-allergic pills. So made one more effort by checking my address book. The name did appear there. It was 8:30 in the evening. I dialed her number. Hi. Hi, Ajay. Hi, I wish to ask you, whom did you want? Would you ask me at least now what is my business with you? My handset was out of order for 2-3 days, which might have caused some inconvenience. Thank you for calling. Tell me, is there anything I can do for you? I'm sorry, but I can't explain it on the phone. I will have to talk to you in person. Where are you calling from? Ahmedabad. If you let me know a date and time, I shall reach Vadodara. Do we know each other? I know you. I have read your articles available on the internet. I have gathered all possible information about it. If you tell me the purpose of the meeting, it will be easier for me to decide. Only you can help me to serve the purpose, but I'm unable to disclose anything on the phone. Would it be possible to meet this Saturday? Then Ajay is supposed to go to Ahmedabad on Saturday. So they happen to meet. So now I'll jump onto that meeting. And they meet in a coffee house in Ahmedabad on Vijay Charasta. And by having coffee, then this comes up. 6 મહિના પહેલા, now this is what Asha narrates. 6 મહિના પહેલા મારા પતિ રાબેતા મુજબ મોર્નિંગ વોક લેવા નીકળ્યા, પછી પાછા નથી ફર્યા. એમનું વોલેટ, એમના ડેબિટ કાર્ડ, ક્રેડિટ કાર્ડ, ઇસ્ત્રી કરેલા કપડા, નાસ્તો બધું જેમનું તેમ હતું. હું રાહ જોતી રહી. ફોન કર્યો તો મોબાઈલ પણ ઘરે જ પડેલો. એ વોક લેવા જતી વખતે ઘણીવાર ફોન લઈ જવાનું ટાળતા. પોલીસમાં ફરિયાદ કરી, હોસ્પિટલ ઓફ એન્જિનિયર, ટીવી અખબારોમાં જાહેરાત આપી, દેશ આખામાં મિત્રોને સગાઓને માહિતગાર કરે, ડિટેક્ટિવની પણ મદદ લીધી, પણ હજી સુધી મારા પતિના કોઈ સગા મળ્યા નથી. તમને થતું હશે કે હું શા માટે આ બધું તમને જણાવું છું. ખોવાયા એની આગલી રાતે ને એ પહેલા થોડા દિવસો સુધી એ ગુલામ મોહમ્મદ શેખના ચિત્રો જોતા હતા. માપામુંડી સિરીઝ વાળા. હાલમાં ઇન્ટરનેટ પર તપાસતા મને આ સિરીઝ પરના તમારા બ્લોગ અને લેખ મળે. તમારું સરનામું અને ફોન નંબર પણ નેટ પરથી જ મળે. હું એમને શોધવા બધું કરી ચૂકી છું ને હજી પણ બને તે કરવા માંગુ છું. હાથ પર હાથ ધરીને કઈ રીતે બેસાય? હું નથી જાણતી તમે શું મદદ કરી શકો કે કઈ રીતે મદદ કરી શકો. મને અંદરથી વિશ્વાસ છે કે તમે જ મદદ કરી શકો. મારી પાસે અત્યારે આ જ રસ્તો છે. તમે એક માણસ સાથે અમુક સમય સુધી રહેતા હો પછી એ તમારી આદત બની જાય. પછી તમે એના વગર જીવી શકતા નથી, જીવવા માંગતા પણ નથી. અને એ વ્યક્તિ જ્યારે નથી હોતી ત્યારે તમે એક પ્રકારના ખાલીપા સાથે જીવતા હો. એમની બધી જ વસ્તુઓ જ્યાંની ત્યાં જેમની તેમ પડી છે. આજે પણ હું ચા બનાવું છું ત્યારે 2 કપ પાણી મૂકી દઉં. રાતે સૂતા પહેલા અલાર્મ જેમ કહી બેસું છું ને પછી ને ચા પી શકું છું ને ઊંઘી શકું છું. દિવસે ને દિવસે આ ખાલીપો જીવવો મુશ્કેલ બની રહ્યો છે.
હું જાતને સંભાળવાનો પ્રયત્ન કરું છું કે ભાંગી ન પડે, પણ હું જાણું છું કે હવે તળો પડી ગઈ છે. અજય says, હું નથી જાણતો કે હું તમને કઈ રીતે મદદ કરી શકું. વળી હું તમને અંગત તકનો પ્રશ્ન પૂછી શકું એવો મિત્ર કે સંબંધી નથી કે નથી કોઈ વ્યવસાય પત્રકાર કે જાસૂસ. Six months ago, my husband went for his daily morning walk. He hasn't returned since. His wallet, debit cards, credit cards, iron pair of clothes, breakfast, everything was lying untouched. I kept waiting. I tried calling him, but even the cell phone was at home. He often avoided carrying his cell phone along when he went for his walk. I lodged a complaint with the police, checked out all hospitals, gave out advertisements on the TV and in newspapers, informed all our friends and relatives across the country, and even approached a detective. But I still haven't found any trace of him. I have no doubt that he is alive. My connection with him has not yet severed. You must be wondering, why am I telling you all this? Actually, the night before my husband went missing, and even for some days before, he had been looking at the paintings of Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh of the Mapa Mundi series. Lately, while I was searching the net, I came across your blog and articles based on the same series. I procured your phone number and address from the same source. I have tried everything in my capacity to find him, and I still wish to try everything possible. How can I just sit and watch this place? I have no idea what help you can offer me and how, but my inner voice tells me that only you can help. This is my only option at the moment. When you stay with someone for a certain period of time, you get habituated to that person. Then you are not only unable to live without, but you don't want to, wish to. You don't even wish to live without that person. Then you are not only unable to, and when the person isn't around, you experience a vacuum in your life. All his belongings are lying intact, untouched. Even today, I end up preparing 2 cups of tea. Before going to sleep, I instinctively say, don't forget to set the alarm. And then neither can I have tea, nor can I sleep. Day in and day out, it is getting difficult for me to bear this vacuum. I have been trying to hold myself together, but it's getting difficult day by day. I don't know how, now, Ajay, I don't know how I could be of any help to you. Moreover, neither are we on such friendly terms, nor am I a professional journalist or a detective that I can ask you personal questions. Then somehow Ajay takes it up, keeping this. I don't know whether any of you are Paul Auster fans here, but there is this kind of thing that Paul Auster emerges in his own work, and he doesn't take up the detective part, but in this one, Ajay takes up the detective part. So then, we'll just skip a bit. Now this is where Ajay goes to her house in Navaranpura and goes to study of her husband. ઓફિસ પૂરી થઈ એટલે એ મને એના પતિના અભ્યાસ ખંડમાં લઈ ગઈ. નાના ખંડમાં સામસામી બંને રીતે લાકડાની અભરાઈઓ પર પુસ્તકો, એક ટેબલ, એક ખુરશી, વચ્ચે સોફા. ટેબલ પર ગુલામ મોહમ્મદ શેખના માપા મુંડીનું કેટલોગ, તેમાંના કેટલાક ચિત્રોની કોમ્પ્યુટર પ્રિન્ટો, ઇન્ટરનેટ પરથી ઉતારેલા લેખોની થપ્પી વગેરે પડ્યા. મેં એમને સહેજ તપાસ્યા. એમણે કઈ નોંધો કરી હતી ક્યાંય, કોઈ ડાયરી કે નોટબુક? Ajay asked. મારા ખ્યાલમાં નથી, એવું કશું હાથ લાગ્યું નથી. કોઈ અફેરની શક્યતા તમે શાના આધારે નકારો છો? એમના વર્તનમાં મને એવું કશું દેખાયું નથી. શંકા કરવા માટે કશો આધાર તો જોઈએ. એનું રૂટીન એટલું નિયમિત હતું કે એમાં અફેર માટે કોઈ અવકાશ નથી. સવારે ઉઠીને વોક, આવીને છાપું, પછી સ્નાન, પછી નાસ્તો, પછી ઓફિસ, સાંજે ઘરે અમે સાથે ચા પીતા, પછી ટીવી પર સમાચાર જોઈ સ્ટડીમાં જતા, રાતે સમયસર સૂઈ જતા. એમની વાતોમાં ક્યારેય કોઈ સ્ત્રીનું નામ વારંવાર આવે એવું બન્યું નથી. એ ઓછું બોલતા ને ઓફિસની વાત ઘરે ન કરતા, એટલે કોઈ નામ બહુ રિપીટ થાય એવી શક્યતા ઓછી છે. હું ક્યારેક એમને જણાવ્યા વિના એમની ઓફિસે પહોંચી જતો. ત્યારે પણ એવું કશું શંકાસ્પદ નથી જણાવ્યું. એ માત્ર નસીબદાર હોય એવું બની શકે. મને વિશ્વાસ છે કે એવું ન જ કરે. મેં કર્યું હોત તો મને જણાવ્યું હોત. તમને વિશ્વાસ છે એમની એમને જાણ હોય? હું નથી માનતો. તમે નહીં માનો એમની એમને ખાતરી હોય? એકાએક એ ચૂપ થઈ ગઈ. માફ કરજો, હું માત્ર એક શક્યતા તપાસી રહ્યો હતો. તમને દુભવવાનો મારો કોઈ આશય નહોતો. તમને ફરી કોફી લેવી ગમશે? ગમશે. We had finished having coffee, so she led me to her husband's study. In the small room, both the walls facing each other bore shelves laden with books. There was a table, a chair, and a sofa in the center. On the table lay a catalogue of Ghulam Muhammad Sheikh's Makamuni, computer prints of some of its paintings, files of articles downloaded from the net, etc. I examined them a little. Had he put down any observations in a diary or some notebook? Not in my knowledge. I haven't laid my hands on anything like that. On what grounds do you deny the possibility of an extramarital affair? I didn't notice any sign in his behavior. One at least needs some ground to breed doubts. He was so regular in his routines that he had no time for an affair. On waking up in the morning, he would go for a walk. On returning, read the newspaper, then bathe, have breakfast, leave for work, return home in the evening. We would have tea together. Then after watching the news on the TV, he would go to his study and retire to bed on time. Even in his talks, he had never repeatedly mentioned any lady name. He used to talk less and never discuss matters related to the workplace at home. So, the possibility of any name surfacing repeatedly is undoubtedly thin. Sometimes I would reach his workplace unannounced. Even on those occasions, I haven't come across anything doubtful. It is possible that he turned out to be blameless. I have faith in the fact that he would never have done such a thing. And had he done it, he would have definitely informed me. He would know that you trust him. I don't believe that. He would be sure that you wouldn't believe. Suddenly she felt silent. Forgive me, I was simply trying to probe a possibility. I had no intention of hurting you. Would you like to have another cup of coffee? Sure. Now there is a little discussion on Makamuni. This is like a piece of law. So this is piece of law concept. And if all of you follow English, then I skip Gujarati. Is that all right? Huh? Yeah. And how much time do I have?
Actually, we started at 5:15, right? So at least 6:15.
We have another 15 odd minutes.
But that's
So I'll take
Q&A. So like maybe another 10.
5 minutes.
The 5
So is it okay if I skip the Gujarati part and just stick to English?
I think it would be nice to have the Gujarati because that's the language you've written in. And
But
somehow.
then I'll see the crux wouldn't come.
ठीक है,
actually.
आपको जो ठीक लगे.
Let the crux come, otherwise.
You can skip the English.
हाँ, that is a value.
So if everybody can follow English, then I'll stick to Gujarati. I have no issue.
What's the?
So that I can read 1.5 more page. That's it. Couple of more.
Just
pages.
let's go with English. That's fine.
Okay.
Put the AC on.
There's no air conditioning.
You must. Probably,
Sorry.
you must have the struggle. Sorry.
Okay. In the 13th century, Epstop Mapamundi, this is the one that you see here. The earth had been projected as a flat disk according to the popular belief of the Christian scriptures during the Middle Ages. Earth had been divided into the continents of Europe, Africa, and Asia, surrounded by the ocean. In the center stands Jerusalem, which was considered to be the center of the world. East, west, north, and south have been depicted through the head, feet, hands of the Christ. So you see here, this is the head, this is this. So you have hands here, this is hand, and there are feet here. And so now this is shapes, one of them. The creation of such a map in the Middle Ages did not attach importance to dimensions and measurements of the earth, but to religious stories. The map would be shaped by stories. With the progress of science, as the accuracy of the measurements improved, the story started vanishing from the map. So actually, you see, the map is actually constructed of stories. Okay? There are just Christian stories around, rather than the exactitude of science, what Boris calls. Sheikh brings this story-infested map back, but in the process adds other stories to it and erases some others. He fills the blank spaces in the map and vacates the filled spaces, fills them in different ways, and thus keeps altering the original map and creates a new map. Sheikh's work is based on a picture postcard of the original map. The original map got destroyed in Germany during the Second World War. Therefore, this picture of the map is a sign of that has lost its reference. Moreover, in our time, the signifier of the signifier has also been lost. This means that the meaning of this map carried in the 13th century is now obsolete. The picture of the Epstop map is one such signifier that has lost both its signifier and reference. When Sheikh prefers such a signifier over a blank canvas as a surface, a question arises: why? Besides, when this picture is scanned and converted into a digital image, it loses the palpability of a surface available in a photograph or a canvas. All the works and artists that Sheikh has loved, such as Golden Deer of Shangri Ramayana, Ambrogio Lorenzetti, Piero della Francesca, Giotto, Mir Said Ali, they're all here. Here the play is all about love, but its root sentiment is melancholy, grief. What is grief? The inability to reach out to the other, to break off when you're about to reach, to dissolve in thin air while drawing nearer, then reappear at the same spot, in the same way, intact. We are used to observing the meaning of science, not the absence of science. In these paintings, the image of the map of the earth is in itself an event, a miracle. At the level of entire earth, who is a majority and who is a minority? Whose are the joys and what are the sorrows? Whose are the hopes and what about restraint? All the reality becomes an illusion and all illusion turn real. At that moment, the possibility of a region that exists between reality and illusion opens up, where a lot materializes and nothing materializes at all. Like the golden deer that appears in paintings. So this is the one. This is the golden deer. This is from Shangri Ramayana. And this deer that you see, it's painted in mustard color, but it's painted in such a fashion that when you see it on the page, sometimes it appears golden, and sometimes it appears like this. So this golden part, I think I don't actually. But like the golden deer that appears in painting, in this entire series, the face of the Christ that located in the east has been effaced. So if you see Sheikh's work, the face is missing. Hands and feet are present, but the head is absent. Here Mary Magdalene appears, but not Christ. Majnun is present, but Layla isn't. Kabir is present, but God isn't. This means that the devotee is present, but God is absent. God has been erased. And approximately the same moment that he gets erased, devotion emerges. Before that moment, there is only illusion, and after only belief, prejudice, and obstinacy. Devotion is probably in the middle, and what exists in between remains hidden. It exists but doesn't appear. As if because it is in between, it doesn't exist, and because it doesn't exist, it subsists. Now, just half a page. When Boris visited my house, I was translating a book he had given me in Buenos Aires. He wished to see the paintings of Sheikh's Mapamundi series. So late in the evening, we reached Sheikh's bungalow. A lock hung at the door, but there was a bulb lit within. I related to Boris how, for past 2-3 days, I used to go there and find the safe, a lock on the door and a bulb lit within. Perhaps he would have left for Dalhousie and forgotten to switch off the lights. Boris said, try ringing the doorbell. The door is locked. What is the use of ringing the doorbell? Boris pressed himself close to my ear and murmured, press the bell. We don't have much time left. I was surprised and felt a slight shudder. In vexation, I rang the bell. A short silence followed. The ring, Boris's face reflected eagerness. I was staring through the glass in the door. My annoyance was increasing. Boris said, with the same eagerness, ring the bell again. Again the bell rang. The silence followed. My limbs were as if getting cramped by standing there for such a long time. Boris, with a faint smile, said, Sheikh's Mapamundi paintings might offer a clue towards discovering the fault line. Today is a full moon night. It could possibly gleam in the luminosity of the night. We don't have much time left. Ring the bell one last time. Even I felt relieved that we could leave once this game was over. Again the bell rang and the stairs within sounded with tap of chappals. I retreated by 2 steps. Sheikh stood facing me in his kurta and pajama from Fab India. Beaming, he turned the key inside and the lock opened outside. I entered the house after Boris. Sheikh again turned the key inside. He led us upstairs. There he opened a room. Leaning against the wall stood a large canvas on which he must have been working. Sheikh moved the painting behind which a door opened. Sheikh moved the painting behind which a door opened. Boris signaled me and we entered the tunnel. In the torchlight of the mobile, I could make out that the walls of the tunnel were painted with Mapamundi. I think I stopped here. Thank you very much. And I would like to thank Bhagesh Trivedi who has done the translation. Thank you.
Thanks, Ajay, for that insightful presentation. I mean, for me at least, it shed more light, combined with Piyush's the archive and this. No, I'm fine. I think so. Would you like? I have a few questions, and then maybe we can throw it open to the audience, and they might have some themselves. I know that to begin with, because we are looking at Ghulam's work just now, I know that Ghulam, this is an ongoing series, and we started it in 2004, 3, yes, yeah. And so that's, almost 2 decades. And I know that you've been working on it for a decade. So on your fiction as well. Can you tell us a bit about the process? I mean, is there just I mean, you also, I mean, process in sort of so many different ways. You also teach, and do you have are there ongoing interactions with, for instance, Ghulam about this, or no? This is
Yes. See, whenever we meet at the writers' workshop, whenever we used to meet, I used to talk with him, and in this work he appears as a character here in a very brief way. But now, like, I want to develop him as a character in the sense there will be interview of this. Okay, there will be more interaction, all sorts of things. If I would talk about process, this is like more like, see, the way there are many things. Say, what do you say? Combined, okay, very put into here together, like mise en scène. So similarly, like there is Borges, there is Sheikh, and there is this theme from say Auster that see husband disappears, and he himself took it from Hawthorne. So like what can I do with all these things? Okay, and like the way this say you sometimes you see the Marich and sometimes you don't see Marich. Okay. So similarly, probably her husband is there, but we don't see him. How do I find him? Okay, like for detective, like so that whole process goes into it. And in the Australian way is like you leave it and you leave it at that you won't be able to find the person. Okay, so you leave the person. But maybe like I want to find him now. I left it at that in Australian question. But now I want to find him. Let's see what happens, like if I meet him. That kind of thing. Okay, so let's face that. Okay, that kind of thing. So,
this is just to correct me if I'm wrong. So this is what you're saying is also will be a relationship with Ghulam.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's what.
Okay. Okay. You mentioned this is another sort of. I mean, it occurred to me that while you were speaking, that it was such spaces, and it's also interesting in relation to the exhibition, right? These places of camaraderie where writers come together, be it around Suresh Joshi or even now. I mean, I know that I was part of one such sort of group, although I don't pretend to write poetry anymore, but at some point in time I did. And so I was part of a group that that Adil Jasawala had organized something called Loquations. And I was in college at the time and I would attend it. And I know that there was a moment in like say up to like maybe even the mid 2000s. And there was the poetry circle as well. And this is where I got to meet, I even briefly met Dom Moraes, and the highlight of my life was at the time was that I was a stand-in speaker, a reader for Arun Kolatkar's poetry one evening. So, but what I'm trying to say is that none of this somehow exists anymore, or at least I'm not in the knowing of it. And it was not really that long ago. I was still in this millennium we're talking about. And I'm wondering, but I know from conversations with you and like general asides that I've come across that there is still a culture for this just now in Baroda. I know that there has been a group meeting pretty much throughout the lockdown.
Yeah, okay. The same group. Like,
is it a secret group?
No.
Okay. Because
not like Angel and Demon,
yeah.
Not like Da Vinci Code. Nothing like that. Okay, the same writer. See, the same group, Sacharya Workshop, as we used to call it. The same group we started meeting in the lockdown, and this was Naushil Mehta's idea. Kamal Vora then joined in, and then they called up Sheikh, and we all started meeting. And we met for almost 4 months continuous, 6 days, every week. And we used to read again. Okay, if we have done something new poetry we are writing. So if I've written something, say poetry on lockdown, then I would read there. Okay, Kamal Vora, we would read that kind of thing. Okay, Sheikh would read some of his works. Okay, and then that's how we got to know that Sheikh wrote short stories when he was 14, 15, 16 years old. Right? And he has those copies with him in a very neat fashion.
He didn't allow us to read. So he has all that. So this lockdown, we kept meeting, and even now, like we meet once a month. Once a month now we have decided to meet.
So are you saying that there was a period of somehow inactivity and then the lockdown kind of resulted in people
Yes,
coming
yes.
together? Because that's in itself interesting somehow.
But see, even this writers' workshop is an interesting thing. It went on for almost 25 years,
That's right.
every
Okay.
year. Earlier, they
When
used
did
to
it start?
again somewhere in 89, 90, and or say 88 or 85. But during that period, and when Gadya Pro started, around the same time, 88 Gadya Pro started, let's say that. And then earlier they used to meet twice a year, then once a year, and then there were like gaps, and then Naushil again took it up. Earlier Bharat used to do it, then Naushil started. But then like we stopped meeting after say 25 years of the whole circle controversy. Then we stopped meeting. So then this gave us a kind of platform. Zoom actually,
Yeah.
Zoom gave us.
Oh, it was on Zoom, is it?
So we used to do it on Zoom.
Okay.
Imagine.
But I'm now curious, why did you stop meeting to begin with?
So see, it's like Bharat Naik and Gita Naik were the force.
Right.
So Gita Naik used to arrange, and then see, like they grew old.
Right. Sure.
So at 78, you don't expect people to organize.
Sure.
And others could not take it up. So that's how this whole thing.
Yeah, I think it was kind of similar.
More of the health and other issues than anything.
Yeah. Okay. I have a few questions, but I'm going to ask one more question and then I'm going to, in the audience, maybe, but just very quickly, you mentioned at some point of time, you mentioned the subject, you mentioned the word conformist. And I'm curious, in relation to the current sort of the writing scene, was that the word?
Yes.
Or the general, also I guess the sentiment of the world we live in.
See, and that's what I was trying to build. That see, during this 60s and 70s, we had so many new things happening. Experimental fiction, experimental work, poetry, or say experimental writing or experimental painting, experimental filmmaking.
Yeah.
All those things were in the center, sort of, in the discourse. If not, people may not have been watching in say the way they watch say 3 Idiots or Bodyguard, but they were aware. But now, like even if you see how many experimental novels do you get to see world over? Okay, how many Calvinos do you see? How many Enrique Villamatas do you see? So now the world is moving towards much more kind of what do you say, kind of regimented kind of a thing. Okay, where the experimentalism has gone into margin. Center is more like you do things which more of a, what do you say, like Bollywood? Which sells, in a way, which sells.
Right.
Okay, we know that now market rules. Okay, so that kind of, whether you conform to some ideology or conform to say market, it's more or less the same. Conform to certain standards. And because of that, the other voice is going to market.
We started a bit late, so we just give ourselves another 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah, 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, I'm just gonna ask for people to show their hands. Anyone? Good, awesome. Oh, we have one more mic. So.
Hello. Yeah, this is working. Thank you very much. I'm very intrigued by the presentation on various counts. I have just 2 questions briefly. One is that considering what you just mentioned about the experimentations that were at the center in the 60s and 70s, and to some extent to the 80s, I would say. And you did passingly mention about that time being Jacobian and then it becoming Borgesian something. You know, I would like you to expand on that a little bit because
See, the pre-50s or pre-independence here in Gujarati and probably in, I think, other languages also, we had this Gandhian idealism, and that was very, central force in literature and other artwork. So that's what I call Chekhovian, where it's like you trying to represent reality. You think reality is out there, and the job of the writer is to, or the job of an artist is to represent that reality into the artwork. Okay, so everything is out there, and that has to be brought in. But then 60s onwards, like because of these movements, this whole notion of self-reflexivity came in, that what we create is also a reality. Okay? It's not something. So fiction is not something irreal. Fiction is as real as what you see out there, and what you see out there is also a construction. Okay, right now when I see you from here, because of the kind of brain and the kind of cultural upbringing that I have, so what I see when I see you, it's a construction that my brain creates. So right now what I see is a construction. So that whole notion of construction comes in. And then whether art is construction or whether I see you as a human being or whether I see you as anything else, it's a construction. Right? So that's what came in. Like, okay, that we can enjoy work as.
right. So when you're saying Borgesian, you're talking about the 60s onwards.
Yes,
that period.
yes.
Okay.
That period.
Yeah. No, the other one is rather inconsequential, but I'm still very intrigued by the narrative. And we have only been exposed to bits and pieces because of the time constraint. It's going very interesting. But I was just wondering that we heard that about the vanishing husband, and then you and Borges come into the narrative. And what is the missing link between these two? If you can just quickly, just to douse this peculiar interest, because we all love stories, and it's a good story. And I'm just wondering that what is the connection and how this transforms into that. Can you throw a little light on that?
Initially, when I narrated, I found a piece of map, small piece of map. And if you are aware about Borges' story, Empire of Executive to the Science. So there, like, he talks about a map, which is of the same size as the empire. They became so exact, science became so exact that there is no difference between map and the empire. But slowly that empire disintegrates, map disintegrates. And the map, probably some fragments are there in, say, Western Desert or something. So in the beginning, I said that, oh, probably this is a piece that I found from a book, actually, which Borges gave me. This is probably the same thing. And then that gets related to this piece, one of these pieces. That probably that is located here. And then that gets related to the person who has disappeared. That is probably the location. So I'm giving you out everything.
Yes.
But in a way, the whole journey is fun rather than this whole wooden kind of.
Yes, of course. It's not meant to be a wooden. Good. Thank you.
All right, we have, that was for the camera, that was in from because we didn't get your name. We have just time maybe to sneak in one question. I want, or maybe not, but I'd like to just offer the mic to Piyush if he has something to say at all. Piyush, I don't want to put you in a spot, but could response, add. Maybe I have one more thing that perhaps the both of you can respond to, and I mean, because it's an interesting.
That will be fine.
Okay. You know, the name of the work there is Janantike, which is in Sanskrit dramaturgy, it means now, I understand, it means a kind of an aside where the audience, there's something, shared between two characters, and where the audience is kept outside of it. It's easier now with my mask on. I can do that anyway. But and this was the title also of Suresh Joshi's sort of very important book of essays and fiction also, yeah? Or just essays?
Essays.
Just essays. And I'm wondering, can you both maybe just reflect on the title and what does it mean in the context of the essays?
It's like, but if he wants to, because I've been talking.
Okay.
Chip in.
We will both add on to the answer. See, V.Y. Kantak translated this book in English as Intimate Asides. This particular book,
Right.
Janantike. And he translated it as Intimate Asides. So, one thing. Second is, these essays are in the tradition of lyrical essays, personal essays written by Rabindranath Tagore. So these essays also carry a certain kind of way of writing and kind of having conversation with oneself and one's own surrounding with the mediation of nature. And these essays are not written in a way which is like they are informing you, but they are written in a way which is introspective and has a kind of voice which takes you within when you read. So, and Janantike is such like किसी को कुछ कहना है तो किसी के कुछ ऐसी बात है जो कहनी है आपको कि जो आप बहुत ऊंची आवाज में नहीं कहना चाहते, और ऐसी बात है कि जो आप किसी के दोस्त के पास जाकर उसके कान के पास जाकर आप हल्के से कहते हो, और वो बात सुनकर वो जो दोस्त का कान है उसका चेहरा जो है वो लाल हो जाता है, ठीक है? तो उसका एक ऐसा अर्थ है जो दिया गया है. That is what I understand. And that is what I have gathered from what literary critics have written about that particular book of essays, and how even Suresh Joshi's essays, they work upon you when you read.
I just build up from there. Say, it's like going near someone, okay, and sharing very intimately. So, I think even whole of Suresh Joshi's, what do you say, personality or his attitude, or what do you say, Valant, as we say, it was that only, that he used to gather people and talk in a very intimate way. And that's how things started happening. And slowly what was in the margin became so wasted. All that was in little magazines. So like people writing in little magazines, they became major writers. So the same thing happened in Marathi also. Chipre, Kolatkar, they were writing in little magazines. That's how they came up. So, but if you see overall the way Suresh Joshi used to operate, that's how he used to like talk to people and get some work done. And see, he would start one magazine. Nahi chala, chhod diya. Again another magazine, nahi chala, chhod diya. Again another magazine. Okay, then translations, and so many translations. You name a writer and he got them translated during that period. 4 volumes were published of the short stories. Hideshini now. But anyways, we'll have to stop here.
Yeah, because I'm getting messages. Guys, thank you very, very much, Ajay. This was a super, this was a great session. There are lots of questions still to be asked, but maybe we have now, we have a 10-minute break. We have a 10-minute, 15-minute quick break for tea, and we can 10 minutes, I'm told. Maybe we can sort of talk to Ajay informally for those of us who have questions, and then come back. We'll also have the fans on, because there's a film, Who Hunshi Lal, and more about that when we return. Okay, thank you, Ajay. Thank you for coming.
Gitanjali. Thank you all. Thank you, Gallery Art. And thank you all. Thank you.